Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are moving you past the guesswork on A/B testing.
We are. We're going to talk about why most tests you see online are, frankly, kind of fake.
And our mission here is to get you from what we call the amateur reaction to the architect reaction.
Right. It's about learning to spot the noise. And there are three big failure modes: stopping too early, running it too short, and, well, just using a broken setup from the start.
Let's start with the big one, the one everyone falls for, the green arrow trap.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got a new headline. Variant A, your control, is getting a 2% conversion rate.
2 sales for every 100 visitors. Pretty standard.
But variant B, the new one, almost immediately shoots up to 4%.
Yeah.
The green arrow is pointing up, and the amateur says,
We won. Ship it. Let's go.
exactly. But if you've only had, 100 visitors each?
Then you've just made a decision based on pure luck. It's just noise. Think about flipping a coin. If you flip it 100 times and get 52 heads, you don't think the coin is broken, right?
No, of course not. That's just, random variance.
Precisely. And stopping a test that early is the exact same thing. It's a decision based on variance, not a real effect.
So we need math to get past the lux. This is where the p-value comes in.
Correct. The p-value tells you the probability that the result you're seeing is just random chance. It's testing what we call the null hypothesis.
The idea that there's no real difference between A and B.
Exactly. And to be an architect, the industry standard is 95% confidence.
95. So that means we need a p-value of less than 0.05.
You got it. We're saying we only accept it if there's less than a 5% chance this whole thing was a fluke.
And to get that level of certainty, you need a lot of data.
A lot. We're talking thousands of visitors per variant, not hundreds. And this brings up a really key rule.
Which is?
If your store gets fewer than, say, 1,000 sessions a month, you probably shouldn't be A/B testing at all.
At all. Really. So what should you do?
Focus on traffic. Just get more people to the site first. You're better off implementing known best practices and collecting bad data really, really slowly.
Okay, so sample size is one thing. But you also mentioned running tests too short, the duration trap.
Yes. This is all about seasonality, even on a micro level. Think about who shops on a Monday versus a Friday.
Right. You might have the browsers on Monday, just looking around, and then the buyers on Friday, payday.
Exactly. If you only run your test Monday to Tuesday, you've only measured the browsers. Your data is skewed.
So what's the rule?
Run tests for a minimum of 1 full business cycle. So 1 full week, ideally 2 weeks, to smooth out any weird fluctuations.
Okay, this is getting deeper. Even if I get the sample size right and run it for 2 weeks, you said my setup could be broken.
It could. And the way you find that out is a check called sample ratio mismatch, or SRM.
SRM.
It's a huge red flag that your data is corrupted. So you set your tool to split traffic 50-50.
Right. 50% to A, 50 to B. Easy.
But then you look at the results. Variant A got 10,000 visitors and B only got 8,000.
Whoa, that's way off. That's an 80-20 split, almost.
It's a huge mismatch. And it means the test is dead. You have to throw it out.
Why, though? What could cause that?
It could be anything. Maybe variant B loads slower and people bounce. Or a redirect fails only for, Safari users on an old iPhone.
So the 8,000 people who did see it are a biased group. Maybe they're just the ones with faster internet or more patience.
You've got it. That's a bias. You're not learning about your average customer anymore.
When you zoom out, all these rules, the sample size, the duration, this SRM check, it seems like it all points to one thing.
It does. Conversion rate optimization isn't actually about winning tests.
It's about learning.
It is about learning.
Right.
Which means a failed test, one where your new idea loses, is just as valuable, maybe more so.
Because it's a confirmed insight. You learn something your customers don't care about.
Yes. And that brings us to the final thought to leave you with. If CRO is truly about learning, then maybe the biggest, most valuable insight you can get is discovering all the things your customers are completely indifferent to.
The things they just don't care about.
Exactly. And that's information that a quick, early win completely hides from you. Something to think about. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cutting through the noise on CRO architecture. We're going to show you why that old testing stack was, actually holding you back from running the most important tests.
Exactly. We're talking specifically about things like price testing. Our mission today is to show you how to build this integrated data pipeline.
Yeah.
One that doesn't just tell you what happened, but actually helps you diagnose why it happened.
Okay, so let's start with the old way. Let's talk about the massive hole in that old architecture, what Google Optimize used.
Right. the client-side approach.
Yeah, it was all JavaScript running after the page loaded.
Yeah.
And you'd get that awful screen flicker, which is a huge performance hit. But that wasn't even the worst part.
No, not at all. The fatal flaw was money. It was always the money. You could change a price display, from $50 to $75 on the product page. But when the customer gets to the checkout, the system would still charge them $50. It just couldn't update the actual cart logic.
Wait, that's actually terrifying. So you're saying for years, companies thought they were getting good data from price tests, but the whole thing was a wash.
Pretty much. A huge sunk cost for the entire industry. And that's exactly why we need a new standard. For anyone on Shopify, that standard is Intelligence.
And it works differently how?
Well, it integrates deeply into the backend. So when Intelligence changes a price or a shipping rule, it's genuinely updating the cart logic before the customer ever sees the checkout.
So that solves the price problem instantly. And I'm guessing it means you can finally test more complex things like splitting users between free shipping at $50 versus $75 and actually trust the data.
Exactly. It tells you the what? Variant B won by 3%.
Okay, but a 3% win is, it's pretty meaningless without the context. Intelligence tells us what happened, but we still don't know why. We need that behavioral layer.
And this is where we bring in the second piece of the stack, Microsoft Clarity. It's an amazing free tool for Heatmaps and session recordings.
So what's the workflow look like?
It's simple. Intelligence shows you variant B is losing badly. So you just jump straight into Clarity to see what's actually happening. You watch the recordings.
And what do you usually find in those recordings?
It's almost always something small that just kills conversions. You watch a few sessions and you realize, oh, on an iPhone SE, the new Add to Cart button is pushed completely below the fold.
Right, so Clarity turns that raw data into a very specific, fixable design flaw?
Exactly.
But that's a brilliant diagnosis for a layout issue. What if the problem isn't visual? What if the user saw the button just fine, but they hesitated for another reason? We need to know who they are.
And that's the third piece. This is where you bring in qualitative data. We're talking post-purchase surveys from tools like No Commerce or Faring.
So you're hunting for hesitation.
We are. The data tells you what happened. The survey tells you what almost happened. And you ask that one key question.
What almost stopped you from buying today?
That's the one. And the answers you get are gold. You'll find out that, maybe 50% of people mentioned expensive shipping. That survey data becomes the direct hypothesis for your very next intelligence test. It just closes the loop.
So it's this cyclical system, but it sounds like it only works if the architecture is set up correctly. It's not enough to just install the tools, right?
Not at all. You absolutely must link them. That user tag from Intelligence has to be sent over to Clarity.
Yeah.
That linking is, it's non-negotiable.
Because without it, you can't filter the recording.
You can't filter recordings to see only the people who saw variant A versus variant B. If you're not doing that deep link, you've got this amazing sports car, but you're driving with the handbrake on.
So the core takeaway here is that you have to see these three tools as one single integrated pipeline. The moment you disconnect the what from the why and the who, you just lose all your leverage.
Right. And that really brings up a provocative thought for you to consider. If the whole point of this modern stack is to finally isolate the reason for user behavior, just think about how many A/B tests in the past failed simply because the tech couldn't connect the what's to the why. How much revenue did we all just leave on the table?
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're going deep on the architecture of price testing.
And we're pulling a lot of our insights from, the scientific method of conversion rate optimization.
Yeah, and let's just jump straight into the stakes here, because for any business, price is probably the single strongest lever you can pull.
It really is.
And the common truth, the thing we see all the time, is that most brands are, they're underpriced, usually out of fear.
And what's fascinating is how quickly the math just demolishes that fear. So think about it like this. If you raise your price by just 10%,
Okay.
and you lose, say, 5% of your sales volume because of it, you still make 4.5% more revenue.
So 1.10 times
Yeah.
0.95.
Exactly. It comes out to 1.045.
And that 4.5% jump is, that's pure profit leverage. You make more money and you're actually doing less work.
The lazy entrepreneur's dream. Shipping fewer boxes.
Totally. But it sounds simple. The mechanics of actually testing this without breaking your site, that's where everyone gets stuck.
It really is.
So let's unpack this. Why can't you just duplicate a product listing? Run, T-shirt A at $20 and T-shirt B at $25 and just split the traffic. Seems easy.
It seems easy, but it masks some really severe risks. First off, you get an immediate SEO problem, a duplicate content penalty.
Right. Google hates that.
But the real nightmare, the thing your ops team will hate you for, is splitting your inventory across 2 different SKUs.
Oh, I can see that.
You get ghost inventory, stock management goes out the window, your reporting is a mess. It's not good.
So what's the sophisticated way to do it?
The best method, people sometimes call it the intelligence method, is all about using a single SKU. The magic happens with something called cart interception.
Cart interception.
Yeah, a script swaps the price right when they add to cart. And we use contextual pricing, where a cookie assigns the user to group high or group low when they first land on the site.
But wait a minute. Running a script at checkout, using the Shopify API or something to swap the price, doesn't that sound, I don't know, incredibly risky? What if it slows things down or just breaks?
It's a valid concern, but a good implementation makes that swap happen in milliseconds. It's functionally instantaneous.
And that's a better trade-off.
Absolutely. Latency is a technical problem you can solve. The inventory and SEO problems are permanent liabilities that just keep costing you money.
Okay, so the tech handles the how. Let's shift to the human side, the psychology. This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about charm pricing, right? The whole 99 cents thing. It usually wins for stuff under $100.
It's a good rule of thumb, but it has some really crucial exceptions. It all depends on the signal you want to send.
What do you mean?
Well, luxury items, prestige brands, they almost always use whole numbers. $250, not $249.99. It signals quality, confidence.
And that leads to this idea of the prestige test, doesn't it? The Veblen good concept.
Exactly. A Veblen good is something where demand actually increases as the price goes up. It's counterintuitive.
So give me an example.
Think about a skincare cream. At $20, it might feel, cheap, maybe ineffective, but you price that same cream at $60.
Suddenly it's medical grade.
It's medical grade. The price itself changes the perceived value entirely.
So if the goal is more profit, not just more sales, what's the biggest mistake people make when they're looking at the test results?
The number one fundamental mistake is looking only at the conversion rate.
The percentage of people who buy.
Right. You absolutely have to use a value-based metric. The correct ones are revenue per session, RPS, or even better, gross profit per session.
Okay, run the numbers for me.
Let's say price A is $50, and it gets a 3% conversion rate. That's $1.50 in revenue per session.
Makes sense.
Now, price B is $60. Your conversion rate drops to 2.6%, which looks bad.
Yeah, it feels like you're losing.
But the RPS is $1.56. Price B is the clear winner. You made more money from every single person who visited your site.
That brings up the sticky ethical problem, though, the friend problem. Customer A sees 50, customer B sees 60, they talk, and now customer B is angry.
Yep. So there are 2 rules. First, consistency. A cookied user has to see the same price for their whole session. No flipping back and forth.
Yeah, in a second.
You need a mandatory support script ready to go. If someone complains, you honor the lower price, no questions asked. The script is key. Apologies. We're currently running a randomized promotion system. I have refunded you the difference.
So you just eat that cost?
You do. Because maintaining brand trust and that customer's lifetime value is worth so much more than the $10 you refund them.
That makes a lot of sense. The power of that 4.5% revenue jump is so clear, but the real complexity where the sustained profit is in mastering both the technical side.
The testing architecture, yeah.
And that really subtle pricing psychology.
Right. So considering that whole numbers can signal quality for these kinds of prestige goods, here's a final thought for you to take away.
Go for it.
What hidden message is your current pricing structure sending to your ideal customer? Beyond just the dollar amount, something for you to mull over.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're on a pretty interesting mission, I think. We're going to get into the architecture of the offer. You know, that discount, that bundle, that little free shipping pop-up. All of it is designed to basically rewire how you decide to buy something.
Right. And this is really a look at the science of it all. It's often called conversion rate optimization, or CRO.
Okay.
And the entire goal is to engineer these offers with precision, really, to maximize what you spend in the average order value.
The AOV.
Exactly, the AOV. And they do that to offset what it costs them to get you there in the first place, which is the customer acquisition cost, or CAC.
So it's definitely not about being generous. It's strategic. And I think the core question that our sources kept coming back to is this. How do you build an offer where the customer feels richer regardless of the actual math.
Yeah, the feeling is everything.
So let's start with that math, the unit economics.
Yeah.
What's the real difference between offering, say, a flat $10 off versus a percentage off?
Oh, it's a massive difference. And it all comes down to the P&L, the profit and loss. It completely depends on your order size.
How so?
Well, a flat dollar amount is really dangerous on small orders. If you give $10 off a $20 item, you just vaporized half your revenue right there.
Right. A 50% hit. But I'm guessing that danger flips if the order is really big.
Exactly. That's where a percent off offer becomes the risk. A 20% discount sounds fine, but on a $2,000 order, you just gave away $400.
Yeah.
So the whole game is to use the discount as a lure to get you to spend more and hit a higher AOV.
Okay, so we've got the numbers engineered. Now for the mindset. This brings us to the psychology of the bundle. Our sources all pointed to this classic test.
Yeah.
Buy 2, get 1 free
Yep.
versus 33% off a 3-pack. Mathematically, they're identical, but BioGo almost always wins, right? Why is that?
It's so potent because the word free is just, well, it's the most powerful word in marketing, full stop.
It just hits different.
It does. BIGO requires zero mental math from you. You just see a free thing. The brain perceives that as more valuable than trying to figure out what 33% off really means in dollars.
And the business moves more product, too. They get 3 units out the door.
That's the hidden genius of it. And you see that same kind of strategic thinking with another lever, free shipping. It's not a policy. It's an engineered boundary.
Yeah, I love the part in the sources about threshold testing. How do they actually manage to raise that bar like from $50 to $75 without just losing customers?
They taste it constantly. The hypothesis is basically that you'll just add more to your cart to hit that new threshold instead of giving up.
And it works.
Often, yeah.
Mm.
In a test, if the group with the $75 threshold raises their average cart to, say, $78 and the conversion rate doesn't drop, that's just pure profit that they've created out of thin air.
They just engineered my behavior. It's brilliant. It's especially true for things like supplements or skincare, the consumables. You don't see one add to cart button anymore.
No, that's the visual architecture doing its job. The sources recommend this 3-card layout. 1 bottle for $50, 3 bottles for $120, but it's marked most popular.
The social proof.
Exactly. And then 6 bottles for $200 marked best value. They even test which of those cards is pre-selected by default to see what nudges the AOV higher.
Wild. Okay, last one. This is the advanced stuff. The mystery offer. So pitting an explicit save 20% now against a sort of vague reveal your mystery offer. What's the trade-off there?
It's purely an asset decision for the company. The mystery offer forces you to enter your email to get the code. So it generates a ton of valuable leads.
Customer data.
Right. Long-term value. Whereas the explicit save 20% now offer, that's designed to generate immediate sales, cash. So the business is just deciding what they need more of right now, leads or cash.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think it means that optimizing an offer is less about the discount itself and way more about the psychological frame you put around it.
Totally. And given that the best offers, like BIGO, work because they tap into our feelings about value instead of cold, hard math. Here's a final thought.
Let's hear it.
Where else in your life are you choosing the easier math or the feeling of free over the actual, financial calculation? Once you start looking for it, you'll probably see you're doing it all the time.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're basically giving you a shortcut. We're diving deep into UX psychology to get to the core rules of, well, designing for efficiency.
Or as we like to call it, designing for laziness.
Ha. I love that. Because that's really the mission, right? It's all about designing for the limitations of the human brain.
Exactly. The foundation, the absolute key, is accepting that every user is running on a limited processor. We only have so much working memory, like digital RAM.
And if you don't respect that RAM limit, you get these spikes in what's called cognitive load.
You do. And every single time a user has to pause and wonder what to click, that's a spike. And the data shows that spike almost always costs you a conversion. The goal is simple. Don't make me think.
Okay, so if the mind is lazy, the body's even lazier. That brings us straight to the physics of design. Fitts law.
Yes, a fundamental rule. It just states that the time it takes you to tap a target is based on 2 things. How far away it is and how big it is.
Distance and size. And on a mobile phone, that means everything comes down to one critical area.
The thumb zone. That bottom third of the screen where your thumb naturally rests and moves. It's prime real estate.
But so many sites put crucial buttons, like checkout, way up in the corner. You have to do that awkward hand shuffle to reach them.
It's a massive design flaw, and that's where the mental and physical friction really overlap. You see it in two really notorious anti-patterns.
Let me guess. Number 1, carousel sliders.
Ugh, the carousel. It forces the user to wait, to swipe, to hunt for hidden information. That's effort. The architectural rule is simple. Kill the slider. Just get rid of it.
And the second one, the one that causes that analysis paralysis.
Mega menus, way too many choices. It just overwhelms that limited RAM we talked about. The brain just sort of shuts down.
So let's get tactical. Based on Fitt's law, how do we fix this? How do we respect that thumb zone?
It's pretty straightforward. You need sticky add to cart bars anchored right at the bottom of the screen. Always there, always ready. And critically, to prevent those frustrating missteps.
Oh, when you're on the bus and you hit the wrong button like 3 times in a row.
Exactly that. Buttons must be at least 44 pixels tall. That size accounts for human imprecision and just cuts down on that frustration.
You mentioned that good design should be a guided experience. That sounds like it's also about guiding the user's eye.
100%. We have to respect how people actually look at a page. And the secret is they don't read, they scan. And they scan in very predictable patterns.
So on a text-heavy page, like a blog, they use the F pattern.
Yep. They read across the top, scan down a bit, read across again, and then just vertically down the left side. It looks like the letter F. It means they miss about 70% of the content.
So what about on a more visual page, a landing page or an e-commerce site?
There they follow the Z pattern. Top left, across to the top right, then diagonally down to the bottom left, and finally across to the bottom right.
And that gives us a perfect blueprint for layout.
A perfect blueprint. Put the logo top left, that's the start of the Z. Put the cart top right, that's the first stop. And your main call to action, the big goal.
Right at the end of the Z, bottom right.
You are literally designing the path of least resistance for their gaze.
Okay, finally, let's talk about a huge kind of invisible friction point on mobile. Back button anxiety.
It's so real. We've all been there. You click read reviews and a whole new page loads.
And the immediate fear is, if I hit back, will I lose my place? Will my filters disappear?
That anxiety is a conversion killer. The solution is to never let the user leave the main product page, the PDP as we call it. Keep them there at all times.
And the way to do that is actually pretty elegant.
It is. You use drawers or modals for all that secondary info. The cart, the reviews, the size guide, it just slides in over the existing page. The user never fears losing their place because they never actually left.
That really brings it all together, doesn't it? It's about designing for the brain's limited RAM with cognitive load and designing for the body's physical limits with Fitt's law.
That's the whole game. Every successful interaction is about minimizing friction, both mental and physical.
So here's a final thought for you to take away. If a customer will leave your site just because you made them work too hard, how might these same laziness principles apply to your own communication?
That's a powerful question.
The next time you're crafting a big presentation or a long email, ask yourself, are you building a mega menu that's going to cause analysis paralysis? Or are you designing the path of least resistance?
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a look at UX psychology. Specifically, how the digital experiences we use every day are, well, engineered to tap into our deepest social instincts.
That's right. Our mission today is really to get past the simple 5-star rating.
Right.
And to understand the psychological triggers that get us to hit that add to cart button. It all comes down to social proof. We're pack animals, if everyone else likes something.
It must be safe. It must be good.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of a hierarchy of proof. Because you're right, not all proof is created equal.
Not at all. The source material lays out 4 pretty distinct levels. At the very top, with the highest trust, you have user-generated content, UGC.
So like a photo of a real person actually wearing the shirt I'm looking at.
Precisely. It gives you what's called outcome visualization. You can see yourself using it, and it feels relatable. It feels real.
Okay, so UGC is king. What about the stuff we see everywhere? The written reviews, the stars, where do they fall?
Well, a written review, something like great fit, that's medium trust. It's like advice from a friendly stranger.
Okay.
But then you take a big step down. The classic star rating. That's actually considered low trust now.
Really? Why?
Because people are savvy. We all know they can be faked. They can be manipulated at a huge scale.
And the last level.
That's where you find things like badges. See on Vogue, for example. That's not user-proof at all. It's there to trigger something different. The authority bias.
Right. And understanding that whole gradient is, it's crucial if you want to know what's real and what's not.
It is.
So this is where it gets really interesting for me. Scarcity. It taps into that loss aversion bias where we hate losing an opportunity more than we want the thing itself.
Scarcity is incredibly powerful,
Well.
but there's a very clear ethical line.
Yeah.
On one side, you have real scarcity.
Only 3 left in stock.
Right, which syncs to actual inventory. That's very effective. But on the other side, you have fake scarcity.
The sale ends in 10 minutes timer that just resets every time. So what's the real damage there? Do people just learn to ignore the timer, or is it worse than that?
Oh, it's so much more destructive. You're not just teaching them to ignore a timer, you're teaching them that you're unreliable. So they stop trusting everything you say. Even the true things, like free shipping. You've destroyed all your credibility.
Wow. Okay, so if fake scarcity is a trust killer, what about building status? Let's pivot to the psychology of price, this idea of a Veblen good.
Yeah, this one kind of flips standard economics on its head.
How so?
Normally, a higher price means lower demand. But for Veblen goods, a higher price actually signals higher demand.
Because the price itself is the feature.
The price is the feature. It signals status, exclusivity.
So if I see a 50% off sticker on a luxury watch, that could actually hurt sales.
It absolutely could. You've just cheapened the very thing people were paying for, the status.
Wild. So for those products, you don't use discounts. You use
Celebrity social proof. You lean into that authority bias we talked about. You let the price tag and the expert validation do the work.
And where do you strategically place that proof? Like a quote from an expert or something?
Right below the Add to Cart button. That spot is often called the point of anxiety.
The point of anxiety?
Yeah. It's that moment you're about to commit, about to spend money, and your brain is subconsciously asking, wait, is this a scam?
And that little badge or quote is there to quiet that fear just before you pay.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we've covered trust, fear, price. Let's pull this all together. As a buyer, what's the main takeaway from this deep dive?
Well, if a high price is the feature for status goods, you have to start thinking about your own big purchases. Are you really buying the product's utility, or are you buying the social signal it sends? It raises a big question. We know sites are using our biases against us, but how often are we, actively looking for that validation with our wallets?
Something to think about next time you're looking at the most expensive thing on the menu.
Exactly.
So today we are diving straight into the really high-stakes world of mobile UX, specifically that tiny piece of real estate at the top of your phone.
The hero section.
Exactly. It's that first screen you see before you even think about scrolling. And it's basically the battlefield where you either win or lose a customer.
That's silly. Yeah. The sources we looked at call it the 3-second test. If a user on their phone doesn't get what they need in 3 seconds, they're gone.
They just bounce.
So our mission today is to really break down the psychology and the architectural fixes that answer the 3 core questions a user has in that moment.
And those 3 questions are, 1, what is it? The headline, the main image.
2, who is it for? The context, the model, something to connect with.
And 3, and this is the one I think so many sites get wrong, why should I care?
That's the one. The benefit, not the feature, the offer. If you can't nail that, nothing else matters. But if you do, then we can start optimizing using a framework called the LFT model.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The LIFT model. It starts with the absolute core of the message, right? The value proposition.
Right. It has to be crystal clear. Something like the softest sheets in the world. Not just, high thread count cotton.
One is a benefit, the other is a spec.
Exactly. And that message needs clarity. So no blurry images, no crazy fonts you can't read. And it also has to have relevance. This is huge.
You mean if I click an ad for winter boots, the page better say winter boots?
Yes. If there's a mismatch, that cognitive dissonance, that little bit of confusion, is enough to make people leave faster than anything else.
I think the biggest takeaway for me from the LIFT model was getting rid of distraction.
Oh, it's a killer.
The examples in the source material were shocking, like an Instagram link in the main header or a huge chat with us bubble that's literally covering the add to cart button. It's just self-sabotage.
It is. And the last piece is handling anxiety. This is where that little text of the microcopy comes in.
You mean the little line under the button that says free returns?
Precisely. Free shipping and returns. 100% satisfaction guarantee. You're answering their unspoken fears before they even have a chance to feel them.
Okay, so we've got the message dialed in. But all that work is totally wasted if the user never scrolls down. And that brings us to this fascinating psychological trap, the false bottom.
This is such a classic mobile design failure. It's when your main hero image happens to perfectly fill the height of the phone's screen.
So the bottom of the image lines up exactly with the bottom of my screen.
Right, and the user's brain just interprets that as the end of the page. They assume there's nothing else to see, and they leave.
It's like a visual dead end. So what's the fix? Because phone screens are all different sizes, that seems like a nightmare to design for.
The fix is actually pretty simple. It's called the visual cue. You just make sure the next section, say, an as seen in logo bar, peeks up from the bottom.
Just a little bit.
Just a little, maybe 10, 20 pixels. It's enough to subconsciously tell the user, hey, there's more down here. It's a gentle nudge to scroll.
That's brilliant. Okay, so now they're hooked, they're scrolling, they're reading, and now they're convinced. But the buy button is way back up at the top of the page.
And this is a massive friction point. That impulse to buy can fade really, really fast if you make them hunt for the button.
This is where the sticky add to cart bar comes in, right?
Exactly, the sticky ATC bar.
But hold on, don't those sometimes get really annoying? Banner blindness, they just clutter up the screen.
They can, if they're done poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But a well-designed one is all about the timing. It only appears after you scroll past the main button.
Ah, okay.
So it doesn't clutter that initial view. It just locks itself to the bottom of the screen, right in the thumb zone, after you've shown interest by scrolling. So the second you decide to buy, boom, the button is right there.
It closes the distance between decision and action.
That's the whole game.
So really what this all means for you listening is that great mobile UX is about answering questions in seconds, removing these invisible walls like the false bottom, and making sure that final step is always just one tap away.
It is. And here's the final thought for you to chew on. Think about the last time you were reading a long description, got excited, and decided to buy something. How long did it take you to scroll back up and find that button, that moment of searching? That's where even the best laid plans can fall apart. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cutting straight to the conversion goal, digging into the core psychology of, effective copywriting.
We've been looking at sources that focus specifically on UX psychology and cognitive biases.
And the initial finding is, well, it's pretty brutal. It turns out all that beautiful long-form content we write, it's often just ignored. People don't read, they scan.
That's exactly right. I mean, your carefully crafted brand story might as well be wallpaper if it doesn't meet the user where their mind actually is.
So the mission here is to find the actual rules.
The structural rules, yeah. Specific, actionable things that leverage how the mind really processes information when it lands on a page.
Okay, so if we accept that scanning is the default behavior, what are the immediate practical rules we need to follow?
You need to give them anchors, things their eyes can grab onto.
Anchors?
Yeah, that means just ruthless use of bullet points, bold text for the really crucial parts, and crystal clear headlines. That's all you can count on them seeing in that spanning chaos.
And that scanning isn't even random, is it? This is where the infamous F pattern comes in.
Right.
You read the main headline, then your eyes just got to trace down the left side of the page, maybe catching a subheadline here and there.
It looks just like the letter F. And it confirms that structure matters so much more than clever prose. If the value isn't obvious in that F-scan, they're gone.
Exactly. So, okay, structure gets them to maybe pause, but how do we make sure what they do read actually converts?
That brings us to what I think of as marketing 101, but it's something like 90% of stores get wrong.
The difference between features and benefits.
The classic trap. Most sites just list features, the facts, and just assume the user will connect the dots.
But you have to do the work for them. You have to link that fact all the way to a feeling, right?
Precisely. There's a hierarchy. The feature is just the fact. The benefit is the practical result. But the real driver, that's the deep benefit, the emotional outcome.
Let's ground this with that skincare example. Nobody buys a chemical for the sake of it.
No.
So the feature contains 5% niacinamide.
Okay, a fact.
The benefit, the result, is reduces redness and acne scars. But the deep benefit, the real hook, is the emotion.
Which is?
Feel confident going out without makeup. That's what they're actually buying.
And this is where the so what test is so powerful for building that bridge. You can use it to turn any boring feature into an emotional headline.
How does that work?
You start with the feature. Let's say a 10,000 milliamp battery. Okay, so what?
So what? It charges your phone 3 times.
Better. That's a benefit.
Yeah.
But you ask again, so what?
So I never get stranded with a dead phone.
And there's your headline. Never get stranded with a dead phone.
Yeah.
You're not selling a battery, you're selling the removal of anxiety.
That idea of removing a pain point feels like it connects to a bigger concept.
It does. It takes us to the highest level of motivation. Jobs to be done. Or JTBD.
The idea that customers don't actually buy products.
No, they hire them to do a specific job.
And the famous drill example is perfect for this. You don't want to drill. You don't even really want the hole in the wall.
Right. What's the real job?
The real job to be done is something much bigger, like create a home you love.
Yeah.
And that picture is just one part of it.
That's it. So the core application for copy is this. You have to focus on the outcome, the home you love. Not the tool, not the drill.
Okay, so that's the high-level strategy. Let's shift gears to the unsung hero that gets people over the finish line.
Microcopy.
Microcopy. The small words that make these huge differences by reducing friction and anxiety right at the critical moment.
It's amazing how one or two words can completely shift a user's mindset.
Like on a button. Changing it from submit, which feels like work, like you're submitting a form.
To something like, get my free guide. Suddenly, it's not a task, it's a reward.
Exactly. Or what about reducing that spam anxiety on a checkout form?
Oh, yeah. Don't just ask for a phone number.
Yeah, add that little bit of context. Phone number, for shipping updates only, it instantly builds trust.
And it prevents errors, too. Like, instead of letting someone fail, just tell them up front. Create password, must be 8 characters. You're removing friction before it even happens.
So, to kind of wrap this all up, what's the main takeaway here?
I think it's that conversion copy isn't about being clever or writing beautiful prose. At the end of the day, it's about ruthlessly eliminating user friction.
Through good structure.
Through good structure and by connecting the product not just to a basic benefit, but to that deepest emotional result, the job to be done.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. Considering this whole jobs to be done concept, that your copy should focus on the outcome and not the tool, what essential job are your current competitors being hired for that you haven't even named yet?
All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into what Google actually cares about when it comes to ranking your website. Because our mission here is to, cut through the noise. The sources are pretty clear. Google doesn't rank you based on how cool or slick your site looks.
Not at all.
They rank you based on one thing, user pain. Specifically, how much pain your site inflicts on someone just trying to use it.
And what's so fascinating is that this idea of user pain isn't subjective anymore. It's completely quantified now through Core Web Vitals.
PWV.
Exactly. These are the 3 core metrics Google uses to literally score that friction.
Okay, let's break them down. First up is speed, right? The loading experience. That's largest contentful paint, LCP.
Right.
In simple terms, it's just how long it takes for the main event, the hero image, the big headline, to finally appear on screen.
And you have to get that under 2.5 seconds. That's the benchmark. Anything more, and you're already causing friction.
So what's the killer here? What's the main thing that trips people up?
It's almost always a huge, uncompressed banner image, like a giant PNG file that just blocks everything else from rendering.
So what's the fix? The actual actionable thing you can do?
The sources are really specific on this. It's preloading. Use a simple HTML tag, link rel preload, to basically tell the browser, hey, this hero image is critical. Go get it now, even before the CSS.
But hold on, if that's such a quick fix, what's to stop you from just preloading everything? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose?
It absolutely does, and that's the key insight. You have to be surgical. You only preload that one LCP element, overdo it, and you're right back where you started.
Okay, got it. Let's move on to maybe the single most frustrating digital experience there is, the page shift.
Oh, I know this one.
You go to click buy now, and at the last second, bam, an ad loads above it, pushes the whole page down, and you click on something completely different.
That is cumulative layout shift, or CLS. It's a measure of pure instability, and the benchmark is tough, less than 0.1.
So how do you fix that, especially when you don't always know the size of, say, a third-party ad banner?
You have to reserve the space before the content arrives. And the modern way to do that is with a CSS aspect ratio property. You tell the browser, hey, hold a 16:9 space right here. It reserves that box, and when the ad or image finally loads, there's no collapse, no shift. It's an elegant solution.
So we've covered loading speed with LCP and stability with CLS. Now for responsiveness, which is the new one, interaction to next paint, or INP.
Right. This just replaced the old FID metric.
Why the change?
Because FID only measured the very initial delay. INP is a much better measure of, well, real frustration. It measures the entire time from the moment you click add to cart to when you actually see something happen on screen.
It captures that moment the screen just freezes.
Exactly. It's measuring that did my click even register feeling. The benchmark is under 200 milliseconds.
And the solution for that is more on the code side?
It's all about code optimization. You have to break up long-running JavaScript tasks and be really aggressive about removing any heavy third-party apps that are blocking that main thread.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The measurement. People debugging this stuff use Lighthouse, right? The lab data.
Yes. Lighthouse simulates a slow phone on a slow network. It's great for finding problems.
But that's not what Google uses for ranking, is it?
No. And this is the crucial distinction. For ranking, Google uses CRUX, the Chrome User Experience Report. That's the real data.
So data from actual users out in the world.
Anonymous data from real Chrome users. So Lighthouse is your lab for fixing things, but CRUX is the final exam. It's what your actual audience is experiencing.
So when you pull it all together, this deep dive shows that optimizing for Google is really just the technical act of optimizing for a genuinely good user experience.
That's it. It's quantified by these three metrics. You can get a perfect 100 in your Lighthouse lab test, but if your real users, your CRUX data, are having a bad time, you'll still fall short.
The lab isn't the real world.
Never. And that brings up a final thought to leave you with. If the real goal is to eliminate all this user pain, what surprising sources of pain might still exist on a site that aces all the lab tests, but hasn't really dug into its CRUX data to see the messy reality of the internet? So for today's deep dive, we are jumping into image engineering. And, if you've ever landed on a site and it just feels sluggish,
Oh, yeah.
well, our sources give a pretty blunt answer of why. Images, they're typically, 70 to 80% of a page's total weight?
It's a huge, huge number. And that's really the mission here, right? To get past that heavy lifting problem by being, I guess, more strategic about how every single image gets to the user.
Okay, so let's break that down. Being strategic starts with the format itself. The sources are, they're dead clear on this.
Yeah. They call it a performance crime to use the wrong one.
Right. So PNG is only for logos or, when you need transparency. Photos have to be JPG, WebP, or new stuff.
Or AVIF, ideally. If you're really serious about performance, you're looking at AVIF. The numbers are they're pretty incredible.
How incredible?
Well, you're looking at something like 20% better compression than WebP. And compared to the old JPG standard, it's about 50% better.
50% with no quality loss.
With no quality loss that you can actually see. It's a game changer.
Okay, so that's a huge win right there. But format's only the first step. I want to talk about sizing. It has always seemed crazy to me when a site sends like a 4,000 pixel image to my phone.
Which has maybe a 400 pixel screen.
Exactly. It's just pure waste.
It's wasted data. It's wasted battery. The solution is already built into HTML. It's the circset attribute.
Right.
Instead of just one image file, you're basically telling the browser, hey, look, here are 5 different versions, all different sizes. You know your screen, so you pick the best one.
So you're making the browser do the smart work. I like that. Okay, so we've got the right format. We've got the right size. Now we have to figure out when to load it. And this brings us to loading strategy, lazy versus eager.
Right. So lazy loading is the default for most images. It basically says, don't download this until the user actually scrolls down near it.
So for everything below the fold.
For everything below the fold, it saves a ton of bandwidth on that initial page load.
But, and this is the critical part, you can't do that for everything. There's eager loading for the most important image.
Yes. For your largest contentful paint element, the LCP. Usually that's your big hero image at the top of the page.
And what happens if you get that wrong?
That's the critical mistake. If you accidentally lazy load your hero image, the browser just sits there and waits.
It's waiting for a scroll that might not happen.
Exactly. And your LCP score, which Google cares a lot about, just tanks. So you have to eager load that one single high priority asset.
Okay, so we've covered actual speed. But what about the feeling of speed? Perceived performance.
I love this part. This is where you get into psychological tricks like the blur up technique.
The LQIP, low quality image placeholder.
That's the one. Instead of showing nothing, you instantly load a tiny, maybe 20 pixel blurred version of the image. It's like 0.1 kilobytes.
So the user sees something right away.
Instantly. They get immediate feedback that content is coming.
Right.
Then the full high-res image just fades in smoothly over it when it's ready.
So let's tie this all together for you. There are really 3 pillars here. First, picking the right format, and that should probably be AVIF. Second, using CircSet to serve the right size for the right screen. And third, having a loading strategy. Eager for that one critical LCP image and lazy for everything else.
And if you take that idea a step further, thinking about how much these image optimizations speed up that initial experience, it raises a bigger question for you to think about.
Which is?
What other things on your page, maybe critical scripts or some complex CSS, are you eagerly serving right now?
Yeah.
What else is getting in the way of that LCP element that could maybe be delayed? The lesson here really goes way beyond just your pictures.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that quietly kills performance on so many high-traffic websites. We're talking about app bloat.
Yeah.
Our mission is to really unpack why that simple one-click install can secretly sabotage your site's speed and, how to find the ghosts that get left behind.
And the initial insight is it's so simple people miss it. Almost every app you install injects JavaScript. That's it. That's the root of the problem, because that code, it ends up blocking what we call the main thread, and that just sends your INP, your interaction, to next paint through the roof.
And INP is basically how fast the page reacts when I click something, right?
Exactly. It's that feeling of responsiveness.
So let's talk numbers, because the examples we found are, well, they're pretty shocking. A simple review widget can add something like 500 kilobytes. A chatbot, which everyone seems to have, can add a full megabyte. Even a heat map tool is maybe 300 kilobytes. That's a lot of weight.
And it's a cumulative cost. It's not just the size, it's the injection, all those scripts trying to run at once.
Right.
If the main thread is like the highway for your browser, each one of those scripts is a stalled car blocking a lane. Suddenly, you have a traffic jam, and no one can interact with the page.
So that brings up an even more interesting, kind of spooky idea. What happens when you try to get rid of them? This is the concept of zombie code. So let's say you tested that fun snowfall effect app last Christmas, just for a week. Then you uninstall it in January. It's gone. Or is it?
It is almost certainly not gone. The ghost is still there.
So it's still loading.
Very likely, yeah. We see this all the time. That little snowfall.js script might still be trying to load in July, pinging a server that doesn't even exist anymore.
And to fix that, you'd have to do a manual audit, digging through huge files like theme.liquid or your templates. That sounds grueling.
It can be, but you don't have to find everything at once. You can start by targeting the worst offenders right now.
Okay, so how do you do that? What's the actionable fix?
Just use your browser, open up Chrome DevTools, click on the network tab, and then refresh your page.
And then what am I looking for?
You'll want to filter by JS for JavaScript, and then sort the results by time.
So you're just looking for the longest bars in that waterfall chart.
Precisely. You will see them immediately. Scripts taking 2, 3, maybe even 4 seconds to load. And if you see one like luckyorange.js taking 2 full seconds,
then you have to ask the hard question.
You have to ask, is this heat map worth slowing down my checkout for every single user who visits my site?
That really crystallizes the trade-off, which leads us to a more elegant solution for scripts that are, essential but not critical at that very first moment.
Like marketing tags.
Right, like the Facebook pixel. We need it, but maybe not instantly. So what's the play here? Google Tag Manager, GTM, can feel pretty intimidating.
It can have a bit of a learning curve, sure, but the payoff is just massive. You move those marketing scripts, FB Pixel, TikTok, Pinterest, all of them into GTM.
And this lets you use the delay strategy. Tell us about that.
The idea is simple. You set triggers, so these scripts only fire after the important stuff is done. You can trigger them after window loaded, or even just on a timer, say 3 seconds after the user lands.
So the user can click around and interact with the page immediately.
Immediately. And all that tracking stuff just loads silently in the background a few seconds later. They never even notice.
That's the real mental shift here, isn't it?
Yeah.
The performance optimization isn't just about compressing an image anymore.
Not at all.
It's about a ruthless audit of what's truly necessary and always prioritizing the user's experience.
Which I think raises the ultimate question we all have to face. When you're deciding to add any new feature, any new app, does the value it provides truly outweigh the literal cost in seconds of your user's time? For every single script, you have to ask, how long is too long to wait? Today, we're doing a deep dive into some pretty dense technical sources. We're talking architectural breakdowns, developer forums, performance audits. All of it is focused on one of the most expensive decisions in e-commerce, headless versus liquid. And if you're building a site or scaling one, you've heard the message right. If you want real speed, you have to go headless. So our mission for you is pretty simple. We're going to show why that statement is, well, dangerously misleading, and we'll uncover the actual financial trigger point that justifies making that huge investment.
We have to start right there with the speed myth.
The speed myth.
Yeah, this idea that headless just automatically means blazing speed is, a huge oversimplification.
Yeah.
Actually, a headless build, which is usually a client-side thing using React, is so much easier to mess up.
Yeah.
You can end up way slower than where you started.
Lower, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our sources show that a really well-optimized Liquid site, the traditional server-side rendered approach, can easily get a 95, maybe 96 out of 100 on Lighthouse.
And for anyone who doesn't live and breathe this stuff, Lighthouse is basically the industry standard tool for measuring site performance.
Exactly. It's Google's report card for your website.
Yeah.
Speed, accessibility, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, but if Liquid sites can already hit a 95, isn't the real problem trying to maintain that score?
Yeah.
Is headless at least easier to keep fast long-term?
Not necessarily. See, an optimized Liquid site works so well because the server does all the heavy lifting. It builds the whole page and just sends it fully formed to the user.
Simple enough.
But headless relies so much on JavaScript. And if your developers aren't meticulous about keeping their JavaScript bundle size small, that client-side rendering becomes a massive bottleneck, and it just completely wipes out any speed gains you thought you were getting.
So if raw speed isn't the reason, or at least it's not a guaranteed win, then what is the actual justification? When should a business commit to this huge, complex shift?
It all boils down to one word: interactivity, not raw speed.
Correct.
Right. You should stick with Liquid, which is cheaper and way easier to maintain for any site that's focused on the standard e-commerce flow. Browse, click, add to cart, check out.
The basics.
The basics.
Yeah.
You only truly need headless when you hit what I call the interactivity threshold. This is when you need a really complex app-like experience that has to happen without reloading the page.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of a 3D product customizer or a really deep multi-step quiz to find the right product. With Liquid, every submission might force a hard page reload, and that just breaks the whole experience.
Got it. And that's where we circle back to speed, but in a different way, the psychological way. This is the true speed advantage of headless.
Exactly. It delivers perceived speed.
Perceived speed.
And that's all thanks to the SPA, the single-page application architecture. Once that initial load is done, when you click a link, the browser doesn't go fetch a whole new page.
It just swaps things out.
It just swaps the content, the text, the images. To the user, that feels instantaneous, like 0 milliseconds of latency. It feels incredibly responsive.
And that's where things like Hydrogen come in.
Yes. Platforms like Hydrogen take that even further with something called edge caching. Think of it like this. The website files are stored in a little data center just down the road from you, not all the way across the country at headquarters.
So the data has less distance to travel, makes the whole thing even faster.
Much faster.
Okay, so let's get to the bottom line here, the financial spreadsheet. We all know that famous stat Amazon found every 100 milliseconds of latency cost them 1% in sales. How does that logic hold up against the actual cost?
Well, you face the cold math of the dilemma, right? Let's say your Liquid site is fine. It loads in a consistent 2.0 seconds. Your sources say a headless build will take 3 months and cost, say, $50,000. That's a real upfront cost.
A big one.
So the question you have to ask is improving my load time by maybe half a second from 2.0 down to 1.5, is that really worth $50,000 in 3 months of your team's focus?
And for most businesses.
For the vast majority of brands, especially anyone under, say, $10 million a year in revenue, the answer is almost always no. You maximize what you have until you slam into that interactivity wall.
So what this really means for you, the listener, is this. Focus your time and money on optimizing the site you already have until your business functionally requires that app-like experience. That interactivity threshold really is the line in the sand.
And a final thought for you to explore on your own. If your site already loads in about 2.0 seconds, think about the risk. You could spend $50,000 chasing a half-second improvement that might not even move the needle on conversions while taking on massive technical debt with a new, complex system. Sometimes, you don't need a brand new expensive car. You just need an expert tune-up on the perfectly good engine you already own. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're putting our operational glasses on because, we are focused entirely on the financial architecture you need to scale a business without just, burning cash.
Exactly.
We need to define the crucial metrics that measure true viability versus those numbers that just make us feel good.
That's right. Our mission today is pretty simple: to give you the blueprint, We are going to quickly build out the essential structure of the P&L, the profit and loss statement, and then identify the single metric that is the financial litmus test for whether you're generating sustainable growth. And that is the contribution margin.
And we have to start by dismantling the metric that probably causes more scaling businesses to crash than any other. I'm talking about ROAS, return on ad spend.
Oh, the vanity metric.
The ultimate vanity metric. Why do we call it that?
Because it only tells, half the story. The source material gave a perfect scenario. You spend $100 on ads, you generate $400 in revenue.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
A 4.0 ROAS.
Wonderful, right? But what if your product cost, plus your shipping, plus all your transaction fees equals $300?
Then you have zero profit. You made nothing.
You made nothing. You didn't make any money. You simply used the ad spend to move $400 around. You basically paid $100 for the privilege.
Wow. Okay, so that perfectly illustrates why we need to transition to the only number that dictates if your business model is actually sound, the contribution margin.
Yes.
But wait a second. If marketing is the engine of growth, why would we include ad spend before calculating our operational profit? Doesn't that risk stifling aggressive growth?
That's the critical difference, you see.
Yeah.
We include ad spend because we want the contribution margin, or CM, to measure profitability on a per-purchase basis.
Per purchase, okay.
The formula is clear. Revenue minus your COGS, yes, minus shipping, minus transaction fees, and yes, minus your ad spend. The dollar amount left over, that's your contribution margin.
And what should that CM look like? What are we aiming for?
Well, what we really care about is the contribution margin ratio. This is the percentage of every dollar that is left after the sale to cover all your other expenses.
Like rent, salaries, software.
All of that. And the benchmark you are aiming for, generally speaking, is a contribution margin of about 15 to 20%.
And that's after marketing is paid for.
That's after all those direct variable costs, including marketing, have been paid.
Okay, so once we have that CM money, we need a map to see how we spend it. And that map is the P&L structure. Let's walk through that monthly flow.
If you can get the structure in your head, it just gives you immediate clarity. So you start with gross sales. Then you subtract returns and refunds to get to your net sales.
Simple enough.
From that, you subtract your cost of goods sold, your COGS.
And what's the common mistake here? The one that kills gross profit?
The biggest mistake fast-scaling brands make is forgetting to include landed costs.
Landed costs.
Yeah, that is the freight, the duties, the warehousing fees. You have to include all of that to get an accurate gross profit. Now, after gross profit, you subtract all your general operating expenses, OPEX.
So those OPEX costs are things like rent, software subscriptions, staff salaries, maybe some agency fees.
Exactly.
And once we subtract all that, we get down to EBITDA, which always sounds intimidating, but it's really just our proxy for operational health, isn't it?
It is. EBITDA earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization is key because it strips away all the non-operational noise.
Right, like tax laws or debt payments.
It just shows you how efficiently the business operates at its core. But to manage that, you really have to know the difference between your fixed and variable costs.
And this breakdown is so powerful because it tells you where you have leverage. So variable costs are tied directly to volume. They go up with every single order.
Like the product itself, the shipping, the payment fees.
Right. And then fixed costs are, well, they're static no matter how much you sell. Your Shopify Plus bill or your core payroll.
And that connection is absolutely essential because it unlocks the break-even point.
Oh.
Once you know your contribution margin per unit, you can solve for survival. You can figure out how many units you have to sell just to cover those big fixed costs.
So give us the math on that, the break-even calculation.
It's simply your total fixed costs divided by your contribution margin per unit. For example, if your fixed costs are, say, $10,000 this month, and your CM per unit is $10.
You know you need to sell 1,000 units just to keep the lights on.
Yeah, certainly. You know your baseline.
So what does this focus on CM and P&L architecture really mean for you, the person listening who wants true scale?
Well, the core insight is that this whole approach, it shifts your business from that superficial game of just moving money around.
The ROAS trap we talked about.
The ROAS trap, exactly. It moves you to genuinely generating sustainable long-term profit. It's the very definition of efficiency.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. If your current contribution margin is below that critical 15 to 20% benchmark, what single fixed cost could you strategically adjust right now? Maybe renegotiate a software contract, or restructure a non-essential staff role to dramatically change your break-even point and give you that operational clarity? Go find that answer. Okay, so let's jump right into this deep dive. We're going to unpack a financial paradox that has killed more successful businesses than pretty much anything else.
It's a really brutal one.
Yeah, the idea that you can look incredibly profitable on your P&L statement.
But be completely bankrupt in your bank account. It happens all the time.
All the time. So profit is what? It's theory?
Profit is pure theory. It's a scorecard. But cash. Cash is the absolute reality. Our mission today is to quickly unpack why this happens, focusing on this operational disconnect we call the death gap.
Right.
And, the financial architecture you need to bridge it. The P&L tracks success, but cash is the oxygen.
That classic death gap scenario, I mean, we see it constantly, especially with direct-to-consumer brands heading into Q4.
Oh, absolutely. The holiday season is the perfect storm for this.
Exactly. So let's imagine you run a D2C company. It's, say, early October, and you have to pay the factory $100,000 now for your holiday stock.
Right. The cash goes out the door immediately.
Then you hit Black Friday. Sales are amazing. The P&L looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But you don't actually sell through all those goods until, what, December?
And because of processing times, that big Shopify deposit doesn't hit your bank until mid-January.
And that leaves you with a 90-day cash hole. We've seen clients nailing sales, but literally sweating bullets over how to pay November's Google ad bills because they have zero liquid cash.
So how do you survive that? I mean, that's the core question.
Right. If cash is the only thing that matters, what do you do?
Well, surviving that gap means you have to understand a core operational metric, the cash conversion cycle.
The CCC.
Okay, the CCC. And this isn't just like abstract finance jargon, right? This is a number you can actually influence.
Precisely. It's the measurement of how efficiently your company turns an investment in inventory into actual money in the bank.
So break down that formula for us. What are the moving parts?
It's basically a tug of war between three things.
Yeah.
You've got your days inventory outstanding plus your days sales outstanding.
Okay.
And then you subtract your days payable outstanding. And the ultimate goal, which is super rare, is a negative CCC.
Absolutely. A negative CCC is the holy grail. It means you get paid by the customer before you ever have to pay your supplier.
That days payable outstanding metric. That's your superpower then.
It is. It's essentially a 0% interest loan from your supplier. Amazon is the classic example of this. They are literally financing their massive growth on the backs of their suppliers.
Which frees up all their cash for R&D or whatever else.
Exactly. But for the rest of us, the DTC reality is usually a positive CCC, maybe 60 to 90 days.
So you're stuck financing that whole inventory load yourself, and that's cash that could have been reinvested in growth.
For sure. So since we know that 60 to 90-day gap exists, we have to build a robust financing architecture to bridge it.
Okay, so where do you start?
You always start with the cheapest option first, negotiating supplier terms. Ask for net 30 or net 60.
Meaning you pay 30 or 60 days after the shipment arrives.
Yes. That's pure 0% interest financing right there.
But what if your supplier won't budge? Or you just need cash faster?
Then you move to the more expensive, faster options. Revenue-based financing is very popular.
Like Shopify Capital or Wayflyer.
Exactly. They give you cash upfront, then take a percentage, maybe 10% of your daily sales, plus a fixed fee.
And we can't forget about credit cards. Using an Amex Plum or Chase Ink for, say, marketing spend gives you a quick 30 or 60-day float.
A huge help for operational expenses. But look, those are all Band-Aids. They're temporary fixes. If the gap keeps widening, you'll never catch up.
Right, you're just chasing your tail. You have to fix the root cause.
You have to. And that fatal mistake, the #1 cause of cash flow death.
It's overordering.
It is always overordering. Buying too much inventory based on a hunch, on hope, and not on actual sales data.
So how do you prevent that? How do you move from ordering hope to ordering, well, reality?
You have to use inventory forecasting tools. You only need 2 pieces of data: your sales velocity, how many units you sell per day, and your lead time.
How long it takes for a restock to actually arrive?
Yes. So if your factory lead time is 60 days, you literally only need to order 60 days of sales velocity, plus a small buffer.
That safety measure.
It's non-negotiable. Always keep 2 weeks of buffer stock. That's your safety stock. It's your insurance policy, but no more.
So the core lesson here for you listening is that cash flow isn't just an accounting challenge.
Not at all. It's an operations problem. You have to manage the financing levers and the forecasting discipline at the same time.
Which brings us to the big takeaway.
I think so. To survive that cash flow death gap, you have to ruthlessly commit to one thing: Ordering, selling, and managing based on data, not hope.
Data, not hope.
That shift in discipline is the only thing that guarantees the lights stay on while you grow. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into two of the biggest threats to any growing business.
Chaotic team structure and, maybe more importantly, critical knowledge just being trapped in one person's head.
Exactly. This is all about building a solid operational architecture, moving you from being the chief firefighter to the chief architect of your workflow.
And we have to start with this metric that just quantifies the risk perfectly. It's called the bus factor.
The bus factor. It sounds pretty grim.
It's brutally pragmatic. I mean, it asks, how many people on your team need to get hit by a bus, metaphorically, of course,
right,
for the whole business to just collapse?
Wow. That really hits home for anyone running things solo. If you're a solopreneur, your bus factor is 1.
Exactly 1. That's total failure risk.
Yeah.
And that's the core problem we're going to solve.
So it's not just about planning for a disaster.
No, not at all. The goal is documentation. It's about getting everything so well documented that the system just runs independently. You have to get the knowledge out of your brain and onto paper.
So you become the architect of the system, not the person running on the hamster wheel.
You're not the primary doer anymore. Precisely.
Okay, so if you're tired of answering the same customer service question like 5 times a day or fixing the same mistakes over and over, this is for you.
Standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
SOPs. That's the antidote.
And we need to be clear here. An SOP is not some grand business philosophy.
No, it's a checklist. Pure and simple.
So how should these checklists look? I mean, what's the right format?
Okay, this part is critical for them to actually work. You need to store them somewhere accessible, like Notion or Slab. But, and this is key, they have to combine written bullet points with a video.
A video.
Yeah, like a screen recording from Loom or something similar. It just removes all ambiguity and helps people who learn visually.
And the level of detail, that's where people trip up, right?
Absolutely. This is the difference between a system that runs and one that fails. It's not just a step that says process the refund.
No, it's way more granular. The sources gave a great example for a customer service refund. It's like, step 1, open the Shopify order.
Step 2, check if the order date is less than 30 days ago.
3, click the specific return button. 4, select the specific reason from the drop-down menu.
Right. 5, generate the shipping label. And 6, email the customer using template number 4.
That level of specificity, you see how there's just no room for error there.
Exactly. And that documentation is the foundation for hiring properly. You can't hire people to run a machine that isn't documented.
Which brings us to the hiring ladder, a very strategic approach to staffing.
Yeah, you don't just go out and hire a chief marketing officer on day 1. That's a huge mistake.
So what does level 1 of the ladder look like?
Level 1 is your generalist VA, a virtual assistant. Their only job really is to free up your time. Basic data entry, handling those simple, perfectly documented customer service tickets.
Okay, so they're running the checklists. Then what's level 2?
Level 2 is for specialists. These are your freelancers or agencies. Think a media buyer, an email marketer, a developer. They're plugging in a specific skill set that you don't have.
Okay, so then level 3 must be the in-house team, the operators.
Right. But their job is different. They aren't just running the tasks. The level 3 operator, like an operations manager, manages the machine.
So they audit the workflows, they refine the SOPs, they manage the level 1 and level 2 teams.
Exactly. They maintain the system that you, the architect, designed.
This whole structure makes you decide, though, what do we keep in-house versus what do we give to an agency?
And the sources are pretty clear on this. Agencies can be great for, say, ad buying.
Why is that?
Because they see data across maybe 100 different accounts. They have a much broader perspective than you ever could. The downside is they're expensive, often a percentage of your ad spend.
Right. And conversely, in-house is way better for things that need to be super aligned with your brand's identity.
Totally. Like creative content creation or community management. You need that consistent brand voice, and it's just much harder to get that from an external team.
So it all comes back to the same core idea.
Your most important job as the owner isn't to do the work. Is to design the workflow so effectively that other people can execute it.
Lowering your bus factor with every step.
You're the architect, not the labor.
So here's the challenge for you listening right now. What is the single most critical task in your business that only you know how to do?
Find that task.
That's your weakest link. And that should be the subject of your very first incredibly detailed SOP checklist. Go design that workflow.
So if you're running an e-commerce team trying to get past that that $10 million wall. You know the feeling.
Oh, yeah.
The whole company just runs on Slack chaos.
Total chaos. Decisions are happening in DMs. Meetings go nowhere.
And the outcome of a meeting is just another meeting.
Yeah.
You're working hard, but you feel completely stuck.
That hustle you're feeling, that's actually your operational ceiling. You can't just willpower your way to the next level.
Right.
You need an operating system for the business. And for scaling e-commerce, that is hands down the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It's more than just a few tools. It's really a culture transplant. It forces accountability.
So our mission today is to dive into the core mechanics of it, the data, the meeting rhythm, and this brutal approach to prioritization. We want to show you how you move from just reacting to actually scaling.
And we have to start with the data, because if your company is running on feelings, it is not scaling.
So pillar one is the scorecard.
Yep. You track just 5 to 10 key numbers every single week.
And we're talking raw numbers here, right?
Yeah.
No stories, no excuses.
Just the facts.
Things like revenue, conversion rate, customer acquisition cost, and this is critical, contribution margin in dollars.
Yes, the dollar figure. That's the real cash flow signal. It tells you if you can actually afford to scale.
So what's the rule here?
And this is where the efficiency kicks in. If a number is on track, so if it's green, the owner just says, good.
That's it.
That's it. You move on. You only spend your brain power on the items that are off track, the red ones. You spot problems way before they blow up the P&L.
Okay, so we're only talking about the red items. Where? Where does that conversation happen?
That brings us to the rhythm, the level 10 meeting, or L10.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This is a 90-minute weekly meeting that you absolutely cannot skip.
And it has this fiercely tight agenda. Good news, scorecard, headlines. You burn through those.
Because it's all designed to protect the main event.
Exactly. The core of the meeting, a full 60 minutes, is dedicated to IDS. Identify, discuss, solve.
I mean, most companies just talk around problems.
So an hour, yeah. They don't actually solve anything.
But wait, 60 minutes for the hardest stuff. That seems ambitious.
Yeah.
How do you identify the real root cause?
Let's take an example.
Okay.
The symptom is we missed revenue because our best seller is out of stock. It's so tempting to just blame the factory and move on.
Right.
But the discuss phase forces you to ask why. Why was it out of stock? Factory delay. Okay, why didn't we know about the delay? And then you find it. Our forecasting sheet is manual and nobody owns it. That's the real operational failure.
And once you find that root cause, the solve phase is mandatory.
Mandatory. You create one clear, actionable to-do, someone owns it, and it has a deadline. Architect a new forecasting sheet by next Tuesday. Done. Accountability.
But here's the thing. How do you stop that to-do list from becoming, a monster of its own?
That's the final pillar. Ruthless prioritization. We call them rocks. For the next 90 days, the company or the department picks just 3 to 7 non-negotiable priorities. These are your rocks.
And everything else.
Everything else is gravel. All those emails, the small tasks, the nice-to-have projects, it's all gravel.
And EOS forces leadership to delegate almost all of that gravel.
They have to. Otherwise, they'd have no time to actually move their rocks forward. A rock isn't a small task. It's a huge project.
Like migrate to Shopify checkout extensibility.
Or launch the entire Black Friday campaign to hit a 5x ROI goal. They are the only things that truly matter for that 90-day sprint.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, for you listening,
Yeah.
this whole system just replaces guesswork with a clear process.
It's self-correcting. The scorecard brings clarity. IDS creates accountability.
And the rocks provide that relentless focus.
It stops the panicked, what's the plan conversations, because the plan is always clear and it's always being measured.
So what does this all mean? If you were to do this right now, think about your own to-do list.
Yeah, look at everything you're working on.
If you had to define just 3 rocks for the next 90 days for your own work or even your life, which of your current tasks would you immediately have to classify as gravel? That shift in focus, that's the whole game.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is pretty straightforward. We are jumping right into lesson 5.1 on business valuation.
Yeah, giving you the playbook for how companies are actually bought and sold.
And we have to kick things off with something we call the revenue trap. It's probably the most brutal lesson for founders.
Oh, it is.
You hear someone say, I have a $10 million business. And, that sounds amazing.
It does. It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But then a real buyer comes along and asks one simple question.
How much profit are you making?
Exactly. And if your answer is, say, $100,000, You don't have a $10 million business.
Not even close.
You have maybe a $300,000 asset. Because businesses are sold on profit, not revenue, it's the cold, hard truth.
But wait, hold on. Doesn't that $10 million in revenue show huge potential? I mean, if a buyer can just fix the profit leaks.
That's just it. They see it as a huge risk and a ton of work they have to do.
Yeah.
They're paying you for the asset you built, not the turnaround project they have to lead. So they're going to pay a lower multiple for that risk.
Right. So, if profit is king, we need to define which kind of profit we're even talking about. There are two main ones, right?
Yep, two key metrics. And the dividing line is usually around the $5 million valuation mark.
Let's call them the Main Street metric and the Wall Street metric.
I like that. So for Main Street, for businesses under that $5 million mark, you're almost always using SDE.
Seller discretionary earnings. Break that down for us. What's discretionary?
It's what the seller that's you chooses to take out of the business. It's your net profit, plus your own salary, plus any personal expenses you might run through the company.
Like your car payment or phone bill.
Totally. The buyer's logic is simple. They're thinking, I'm going to replace you, the owner. So every dollar you were taking out is now pure cash flow for me.
Makes sense. It's the true owner's take-home cash. But what about the bigger players? Private equity.
That's the Wall Street metric. Once you're over that $5 million line, everything switches to EBITDA.
Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Right. It's a standardized way to look at the pure operational efficiency of the business engine itself. They assume a professional CEO is always running things.
Okay, so here's the formula that really decides your fate. Your value equals profit times a multiple.
And that multiple, that's everything. It's the lever that can either make you wealthy or bring you back down to earth.
So let's talk ranges. What does a low-quality multiple look like?
Think about a standard dropshipping store. High risk, no real brand, anyone could copy it tomorrow.
Okay.
That's probably a 2 to 3x multiple at best.
And the flip side, the D2C unicorns.
Oh, now you're talking 5x or even higher. That's a completely different animal.
What's the difference? What gets you from a 2x to a 5x?
In a word, defensibility. Either you have real proprietary IP, like a patent.
Which most don't.
Exactly. Or you have massive, predictable, recurring revenue. Think subscriptions.
Okay, so let's make this actionable. If you're listening and you're stuck at a 2x, how do you get to a 4x? The sources lay out 3 keys.
Right. And number 1 is the thing that trips up most founders. It's owner dependency.
Meaning, if you leave, the business dies.
100%.
Yeah.
If the company can't run without you, the multiple will always be low. You have to build systems that prove it can.
Makes sense. What's the second point?
Diversify your traffic. This is a huge one. Buyers get spooked by concentration risk.
The classic example being...
90% of your sales come from Facebook ads. One account ban, and your entire business evaporates overnight.
A massive liability. Okay, and the third and final lever.
This is the big one for most small owners. Recurring revenue.
Subscriptions again.
Yeah, and the data is so explicit on this. Subscription revenue is valued at double the rate of one-time revenue. It's like a 2x boost to your multiple right there.
So when you zoom out, valuation isn't about shouting your revenue number. It's about how defensible and predictable your profit is.
It's all just a measure of risk. That's it. How much risk is a buyer taking on?
Okay, so let's leave you with one final thought to mull over.
We know that things like patents can push a business into that 5.0x plus unicorn status.
Right.
So the question for you is, if you don't have a patent, what is the most accessible, immediate way for you to create that same level of defensibility today? What move can you make right now?
And based on everything we've just discussed, it really seems like building in that recurring revenue is the most powerful answer.
Okay, so let's get into this. If you're selling your business, you'd think the hardest part is, getting that big offer.
Turns out that's not it at all.
Wrong. The hardest part is surviving what comes next. The audit. Due diligence or DD.
That's the truth. We're diving into the M&A due diligence process, which one source we looked at called, and I love this, the proctology exam of your business.
Wow, okay. That's vivid.
It is, and it's basically a 30 to 90-day period where the buyer's entire goal is to meticulously audit your company and find any reason they can to chip away at that price.
No, our mission for you in this deep dive is to shortcut that pain. What prep do you absolutely need to do, and what are the instant deal killers that can just sink a whole transaction overnight?
Right, and buyers don't just, kick the tires. They bring in teams to run 3 mandatory audits. First up is the big one, financial DD.
This sounds simple, but I get the feeling it's where all the trust is either won or lost, right?
Yeah.
They're not just reading your P&L statement.
No, not at all. They are verifying every single bank deposit against your internal sales reports, your Shopify exports, your Stripe data.
Why so granular?
Because they're hunting for phantom revenue. If the cash hitting the bank doesn't perfectly match the sales you claim, the whole deal can just stall right there. They immediately suspect the books are cooked.
Okay, so that's the money. Then you have legal DG. This feels like the bureaucratic headache part.
It is, but it's the bedrock of the business. They're looking at employee agreements, supplier contracts, and crucially, your trademarks.
To make sure you actually own what you're selling.
Exactly. They need to know they're not about to inherit a massive lawsuit.
And then the third piece, for pretty much any modern business, is tech DD. Why do they care so much about the code if the product is already working and making money?
Because they're auditing for hidden costs. They call it technical debt.
Technical debt.
Yeah. Is the code a spaghetti mess of undocumented functions and old libraries that'll cost them a fortune to clean up? Or worse, will the whole thing just crash 6 months after they buy it? It's an audit of future liabilities.
That is a brutal checklist. So knowing they're coming for all that, how do you even start to prepare? This is where the data room comes in, right?
Absolutely. You build this secure folder, Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever, before you even think about listing the business. It's your preemptive strike.
To answer their questions before they even ask.
Precisely. We found a really solid 4-folder structure is the standard. Financials, legal, operations, and traffic.
And in those folders, what's the one thing people always forget that ends up being a huge problem?
The operations folder. They forget their SOP's standard operating procedures and a clear org chart. A buyer needs proof the business runs without you.
So if it's not documented, they're not buying an asset, they're just buying a very expensive job.
And that craters the valuation.
Which brings us to the things that make a buyer just walk away. The instant deal killers. Number 1. Commingling funds.
Oh, this is a huge red flag. Using the business credit card for family groceries or personal travel.
Why is that so bad?
It makes your profit and loss statement totally untrustworthy. It just signals a lack of professional discipline.
Okay, second, supplier concentration. Now wait, I thought having one great, reliable factory was a good thing.
It's efficient, yeah, but from a buyer's risk perspective, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. It's a single point of failure.
If that one factory in China burns down or has a political issue.
The entire company's value can plummet to zero overnight because the supply chain is just that fragile.
And the third one is probably the fastest deal death of all. IP infringement.
If you don't verifiably own your intellectual property, there is nothing to sell. Full stop. One expert gave the example of a deal dying because the founder was using, like, Disney characters on T-shirts without a license.
A non-negotiable deal killer.
Absolutely.
Now, this is where things get really serious. For exits over, say, $5 million, the scrutiny ramps up with something called a quality of earnings report, a QOE.
Correct. The buyer will hire a major firm, think KPMG or Deloitte, specifically for this. Their job is to prove that your profit is real, it's scalable, and most importantly, it's sustainable.
And this is where the type of accounting you use becomes critical. They force you to use the accrual method. What does that actually mean for someone listening?
So cash accounting just tracks money when it hits your bank. Accrual, which is the gold standard, records revenue when it's earned and expenses when they're incurred.
Okay, why does that matter?
It stops founders from gaming the system by, say, delaying payments to all their vendors until after the audit is over to make the profit look bigger than it really is.
So the key preparation step here is making sure your QuickBooks or Xero has been on an accrual basis for years, and it all matches your tax returns.
Perfectly. It has to be perfect.
So this entire intense process from the data room to the QOE, it really all boils down to just one thing, doesn't it? Eliminating risk for the buyer and building verifiable trust.
That's the entire game. And maybe the final thought for you to chew on is this. If a deal over $5 million requires an outside firm to verify profit sustainability with accrual accounting, how closely should you be looking at your own day-to-day books today? That discipline is what actually builds your future valuation, even if you aren't planning to sell for another decade. Get your house in order now.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are doing a deep dive on something that can feel a bit like financial magic when you're selling a business.
It really can. We're talking about add backs.
Right. And our mission today is to pull back the curtain on how owners re-engineer their financials, how they go from books design to, minimize taxes to a prospectus that's built to maximize the sale price.
And that's the fundamental tension, isn't it? The P&L you show the IRS is all about low profit, but for a buyer, you need to show the highest possible profit.
So these add backs, they're the bridge between those two worlds.
That's the perfect way to put it. They're the adjustments that get you to the number a buyer actually cares about, seller's discretionary earnings, or SDE.
Okay, let's unpack that. So add backs are basically expenses a new owner wouldn't have to pay. They're either personal or one-time things.
Exactly. And some are really, really easy, the low-hanging fruit that buyers almost never argue with.
Give us the clearest examples.
The owner's salary is the classic one. Let's say you paid yourself $100,000. That gets added right back.
Because the buyer will staff that role differently or pay themselves a different amount. It's not a fixed cost of the business itself.
Precisely. Then you get the more fun stuff. The personal expenses run through the business.
Like the classic Tesla lease.
Oh, absolutely. That $12,000 a year lease for your personal car, add back. That $5,000 trip to Hawaii you called a business conference.
Also an add back.
Oh,
okay, so that stuff is pretty clear. But what about one-time business costs? Our sources mention, say, a $20,000 lawsuit against a competitor.
Yeah, and that one usually gets through because you can prove it was a specific, isolated event. It's not going to happen again next year.
But that's where the gray area starts, right? That's where the real negotiation begins.
This is where it gets interesting, because the buyer's job is to challenge anything that isn't a sure thing.
So, for instance, what if a seller spent, say, $50,000 on R&D for a new product that just completely bombed? They'd argue that's a one-time expense.
Of course they would. But a smart buyer pushes back. They'll say, wait a minute, is product development and failure just part of your business model? If you're constantly innovating, then R&D isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing cost of doing business.
Right. And keeping that cost in the books gives a more realistic picture of the future cash flow.
It's the exact same logic for bad inventory. The seller wants to add back a $10,000 write-off for old stock,
claiming it was a freak accident, something that never happens.
And the buyer comes back and says, well, hold on. How often does your inventory spoil? Is this actually just a recurring, predictable cost? That distinction is everything.
And this is where we get to the aha moment. Because all this fighting over a few $1,000s here and there, it matters immensely because of the exit multiple.
This is the part that changes the entire game. Let's just assume a pretty standard 4x multiple on your earnings.
Okay, so you're valued at 4 times your SDE.
Right, which means every single dollar you successfully add back isn't just a dollar.
It's worth $4 in the final sale price.
$4 instantly. Could think about that scenario we looked at. If you forget just one small $5,000 personal expense buried in your P&L.
You've just lost $20,000 from your exit price.
Yeah.
Just like that.
It's incredible leverage, and that's the big takeaway for you here. You have to go through your profit and loss statement with a fine-tooth comb. Line. You aren't just doing accounting, you're literally multiplying your final payout.
It's the ultimate transformation, taking those tax-minimized books and turning them into a sales-maximized machine.
That's it.
And that really leaves you with the provocative question to think about. If you, as a business owner, know that every dollar you categorize as a personal expense could be worth 4 times that when you sell, how might that change the way you think about your budget and your expenses, not just in the year of the sale, but every single year? Today, we're diving deep into what happens after the handshake.
Yeah.
You've sold your business, the ink is dry, but for so many founders, this is where the real challenges actually begin. Okay, let's unpack this. The fantasy of an exit is you get this one massive guaranteed check, right?
Yeah, a wire transfer for the full note.
But the source material we've looked at shows that's almost never how it works. You rarely, if ever, get 100% cash up front.
That's the critical reality check. A standard deal structure, and you see this all the time, is maybe 70% cash.
Only 70%.
Right. And the rest is often split. You'll see maybe 20% in what's called a seller note, and then the last 10% in an earnout.
Okay, so let's take that seller note. It seems simple enough. You're basically loaning the buyer money, and they pay you back over a few years with interest.
It seems benign, but it's a huge strategic move for the buyer. It's not just about them trusting you. That note is a deferred cost for them.
So it looks better on their books.
It looks much better. It juices their internal rate of return, their IRR, because their initial cash outlay is so much lower. They're literally using your money to buy your company.
That makes perfect sense. But if the seller note is financial engineering, The real danger, from what I'm reading, is in that final 10%, the earn-out.
Absolutely. The earnout is where things get tricky. It's a final payment that's tied to future performance.
Like, we'll pay you the last $1 million if you hit 20% growth next year.
Exactly. And our sources call this the golden handcuffs for a very good reason.
Why is it so dangerous? I mean, if the company has been growing at that rate, the targets should be achievable.
They should be, but the problem is you lose control. The second the deal closes, the new owner is in the driver's seat.
And they can steer it right off a cliff if it saves them money.
They can, and they do. They might cut the marketing budget to zero, or they'll shift your best engineers over to one of their other projects. All of a sudden, your sales tank, you miss the target, and poof.
The final payment is gone.
Gone, and it's all perfectly legal.
So as the founder, what's the strategic defense here? How do you protect that 10%?
The key is to structure it right from the start. You have to tie the earnout to metrics you can actually control, or at least metrics that are harder for them to manipulate.
For instance,
Tie it to gross margin. That's much closer to the operational reality you built. Don't ever tie it to net profit, which they can destroy with internal accounting, or even top-line revenue.
okay, that's incredibly important. Now, moving past the financials, there's the non-compete. This is pretty standard, right? A contract saying you won't start a similar business for a few years.
It is standard, but the specificity is everything. It's the difference between a new life and a prison sentence.
You see these horror stories in the research. A contract that says you cannot start any e-commerce business. That's your whole career.
It's a disaster. It makes your expertise worthless. What you need to fight for is a narrow practical scope.
Something like, cannot start a dog collar business in North America.
Exactly. That gives you room to breathe. You can still innovate in a different product category or even a different geography.
Which brings us to the emotional side of this, the identity crisis.
This is huge. Day one is champagne, relief, freedom.
But then day 30 hits.
Yeah. And on day 30, your login doesn't work. There are no more team meetings, no more fires to put out. The purpose you built your entire life around has just vanished.
And that vacuum can lead to some really bad decisions, can it?
It's so dangerous. This is where the wealth management wisdom comes in. Your new goal is not get richer. It's stay wealthy.
So the classic advice, don't buy a Ferrari, isn't a moral judgment.
Not at all. It's purely strategic. You've just had a massive liquidity event. You have a huge tax bill coming. The hardest thing you can do is put that money into boring index funds or stable real estate.
Protect the principal first.
Protect the game. Define your next move from a position of security, not from an emotional need to feel important again.
It sounds like the exit isn't an ending. It's more of a final exam.
That's the core insight here. The whole journey is like a curriculum. You master architecture, then growth, then operations, and finally, you master the exit. This raises an important question for you, the founder who has now run the gauntlet. If the goal wasn't just to sell, but to become a master of commerce, what kind of new sustainable empire are you now truly ready to build? Go find that answer.